Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Ankush here from Alif Consulting. Welcome in our GAINS Centralized Management and Cloud Scale Innovation case study. In this case study, we will be going to talk about how customer have taken the advantage of Azure Stack or Azure STI, Azure Arc, Azure SCI to take the advantage of centralized management and the cloud scale innovation directly from the Azure portal for their on-premise resources. So this is the agenda of this case study. So we're going to understand what is this about the customer. We're going to have a solution design. We'll going to understand how the visibility is enabled by Azure Arc. What are the better protected environment is basically they are getting it, and what they are doing more by having the less like using the Azure Arc. Right. So let's quickly jump into the customer introduction and understand about the customer. So this customer is primarily customers are travel on to go, right? You need the flexibility to serve them whenever they need to be. So this company understands the importance of being there, here, and everywhere for its customer. However, attaining the kind of agility is no small feat, especially with the on-premise digital infrastructure. So this company is completely into the travel industry. They need to be into the customer wherever they go, and they need to flexible uh, to serve them whenever they need it. So as we know, the travel industry is kind of structure where you need to be at 24 into 7, because you don't know when you'll get a call from the customer and where the customer is located, or when in which time zone on that time customer is located. So you need to be available for the customer because of the nature of its business and investment in the hardware. Customer need to retain the on-premise environment. The company duty free business involve high sensitive data like flights, password, and duty free purchase information. The personal data protection law and general data protection regulation required customer to meet the data or manage the data locally. Also, the company has a standing hardware agreement with the partner as a Azure expert managed service provider and the gold tier member of Microsoft partner network to manage two of their business critical system in its data center. So to bring versatility and innovation cloud capability to its on-premise environment, customer need a flexible, scalable, and reliable cloud solution, and found it with the Microsoft Azure Arc. So this customer is already invested their money into the on-premise data center, and then the only option for them is to be there until the data center is getting retired. And then there is the GDPR or personal data law protection is there, which basically want them to be or want them to store all the customer information into the only the local data center, and that's where customer is basically keeping them only with the on-premise, and that's where they have founded the Azure Arc to manage their all on-premise resources directly from the Azure, like VMs, databases, Kubernetes kind of thing. So this is how the design looks like. So you can see you have Azure portal, you have Azure SCI, Stack SCI, you have the on-premise servers cluster, which is directly basically getting connected with the Azure subscription using the Azure Arc, and then you can view all of them and manage all of them directly from the portal. Visibility enabled by the Azure Arc. So with the Azure Arc, company can run all its regulated workload on premise and maintain it in the managed data center, and the same time extend the Azure services it's needed, like Azure Kubernetes services, app services, to its on-premise infrastructure. Customer have now ample Customer now has the ample opportunity to streamline and modernize its IT operations and the application development. Customer development and the DevOps team decided to use Azure to undertake some key development opportunity to enhance the enterprise resource planning, which is also known as a ERP at the company. adding services like Azure Cosmos DB, Azure PostgreSQL databases, and Azure SQL Managed Instance. Customers have had no requirement to keep ERP system and the apps on premise, so they decided to develop them through the Azure Kubernetes services for the greater visibility. Company used Azure Arc enabled VMware vSphere to centralizedly manage its distributed VMware vSphere environment through a single and simplified control panel. So they are taking the advantage of all the Azure services like Kubernetes, Azure App Services, Cosmos DBs, PostgreSQL services, managed instance kind of thing. However, at the same time, they are also uh, managing their VMware vSphere environment, which is Arc enabled directly from the Azure for Azure console by having the single unified control panel. Better protected environment, right? So throughout the Azure Arc, customer have also gained the powerful new security capabilities. Company added the Microsoft Defender for Cloud to define and implement the security policy across its cloud and on-premise environments to manage and implement the security and to configure the email notification for the security alert. Customer is taking the advantage of Microsoft Sentinel as an alternate to the security operations center, using it to handle the configuration management and the other security information and the event management tasks across its environment. The company store and safeguard the certificates into the Key Vault environment, which automatically enroll and renew the certificate of company website, and its benefits for applying the same strong identity protection and conditional access policy through its on-premise and the cloud environment via using the Azure Active Directory services. Customer manage all its account and password, including those tied to on-premise application through the one central Active Directory, Azure Active Directory location. Extending such advanced security to its on-premise infrastructure and managing both its on-premise and the cloud environment centrally helps customers strengthen its security posture. So by having the Azure Arc, they are basically completely extending their on-premise environment to Azure, and they have a single pane of glass, right? But at the same time, they are implementing the all the cloud security possible solutions, basically which is there on the Azure, like Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Sentinel, Azure Key Vault for the certificates renewal and management, and the Active Directory domain services or Azure AD services, basically to maintain the conditional access and store strong identity protection for their user account. Doing more with less. So with Arc deployment, customer have gained the scalability and innovation opportunity of the cloud services while minimizing the long term or maximizing the long term investment and meeting the compliance. This has changed how its DevOps team operate. They have embarrassed Azure DevOps as a key deployment tool, using it to support a agile deployment approach with doing release cycle. In addition, customer is using Azure Storage for its on-premise backup with server backup, database backup, and service logs, and it's storing all the AKS application data with Azure Storage as well. While AKS and Azure Storage provide the greater visibility for the customer, Azure Arc deliver the means to manage its environment more efficiently. In addition, the company plans to deploy more deployment management through AKS on the on-premise, especially for its regulated, personally identifiable information workload. The scale of Azure platform help customer to flexible or flex to accommodate higher and lower period of use. The company can create and delete the VM in Azure easily to support fast changing business requirement. So they were basically using Azure, they were using the other services like the storage account or Azure DevOps, which means they were basically having a very less on the Azure, very less resources on Azure. However, at the same time, they are doing more with all of the less resources, right? So by having the Arc enabled, they get a single pane, a single console to manage everything, and then they're using the Azure VMs, they're using the app services, other Azure services to build the environment or build uh, the application as per the business requirement. Well, that's it in this case study. I hope you like this case study. If you like, please click on like and subscribe for more upcoming case studies, and feel free to reach us if you have any questions. Thank you.